Welcome to iEnhance Student. iEnhance Student is a platform for law students to come and deliver a lecture on the topic of their choice on law. So today we have with us a law student, Arpit Verma, who is a law student in MKES College of Law. So without further ado, I would like to call our speaker, Arpit Verma.
Foremost, I would like to thank entire team of Hammurabi Enhance Student for their amazing initiative, especially Advocate Nikhil Dikshit sir and Advocate Rahul Maskar sir, who have extended their hands of generosity and invited me to contribute to this amazing initiative. Now, without any further ado, I would like to, in a nutshell, introduce to the topic that I would be speaking today, that is contracts in daily life. So what are we going to cover today is basic introduction to contracts, that is what is proposal, acceptance, promise, promiser, promise, see, consideration, agreement and contract. Which act governs contracts in India, how an offer starts and ends into contract, what is counter offer, what is invitation to offer, and finally key takeaways, that is how to learn contracts or best practices for law aspirants or law students, and second is how to save yourself from fraudsters or cheaters. Beginning with, I would want to ask you a simple question. How many of you are businessmen in this room? Oh, I see, well, I can see few hands. How many of you are law students? Again, I see few hands. How many of you who are law enthusiasts, means who are interested in law but do not intend to take a degree in law? Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, all hands up later. The reason being I ask this question is that whatever your status be, wherever you have come from, every person comes into contract in day-to-day life without even realizing in, and they call themselves poor. Well, I'm so rich that every day I come into contracts. While reaching here, I took rickshaw from home to station, bought snacks, tickets from railway station, took bus to reach here. I made 4 contracts. See how rich I am. But how I am. Now, imagine how many times you have entered into a contract. Recall, but you are unaware of such. You weren't unaware because we all know, for a layman, when he or she is aware of entering into a contract, when he or she is, while rents out a flat, purchase a flat, or in short make a written contract, but the same layman is unaware that there are different forms of a contract that take place, and without its knowledge he or she shall land themselves into big trouble. Well, forms of contract, we deal with that in a later part of the lecture, but first understand the basics of contract, some terms and definitions of contract, which act governs contract in India, and remedies. So let me first reiterate 2 sentences. All contracts are agreement, but all agreements are not contracts. All contracts are agreement, but all agreements are not contracts. Well, we'll understand with the help of this example. Now, when we talk about contracts, Indian Contract Act 1872 is the governor in India. So all the contracts which you execute between yourself and this other party is governed by the Indian Contract Act 1872. Now, Indian Contract Act has 266 sections, which is further bifurcated in section 1 to 75 speaks about general contracts. Section 76 to 123 speaks about sales of goods. Section 124 to 147 indemnity and guarantee. Section 148 to 181 bailment and pledge. Section 182 to 238 agency. Section 239 to 266 partnership. Now, in the year 1930, the Parliament brought section 76 to section 123, which states sales of goods, into a separate legislation, now which we known as Sales of Goods Act 1930. Likewise, section 239 to section 266 partnership, in the year 1992, again the legislature made it into a separate legislation today, which we known it as Indian Partnership Act 1932. Since today we are discussing on the basics of contract, we're not going to deep dive into the Contract Act. So what is proposal? So when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or to abstain from doing something with a view to obtaining the assent of that other to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. Now, every contract has a starting point. Likewise, proposal is the starting point of any contract. For example, if I want to enter a contract with you, how will I start? Obviously I have to start it and inform you about my intentions of making a contract. For example, if I want to sell a laptop, if I want 2 packets of milk, wife asks her husband for taking her for dinner. Now, if you might have noticed that the first 2 questions were asked with an intention to create legal intention. Means, if I sell my laptop and what if the purchaser does not pay me full amount or cheats or absconds with my laptop? Or what if I paid money to the dairy store for 2 packets of milk, but instead he gives me expired packets of milk? In both the cases I can sue them, but in the third question I cannot. I cannot because I did not have a legal relation. Surely the proposal was made, but no legal intention for that proposal. So for successful completion of a contract, what are the valid proposals? First is legal intentions. An offer in order to give rise to a contract must be intended to create and be capable of creating legal relations. Mere social or moral relations will not give rise to a contract. Okay. For example, if a wife asks his husband, can we go for dinner tonight? His husband assures, yeah, okay, we can go. But later the husband denies. Now, wife cannot sue the husband because he denied, because he said in the morning that we will go. But he denied, he cannot sue now. Because their agreement was of not legal relation, didn't create legal relations, but was a moral relations. But this does not mean that all family matters that that are there cannot be legally binding contracts. What is important is whether the parties intended legal consequences or not. Second is communication to offer. When there is no communication to offer, how will the contract arise? It is to be remembered that there is no offer till it is communicated. So if person A says, if something is done, I will offer to B, I will offer something, then B person does that thing without knowing the offer. Can now B pursue person A because he didn't get the offer, because he didn't get the price? No, because communication was not made to B that such offer, that such consideration would be given to after the completion of such work. The second is acceptance, which comes under section 2B of the Indian Contract Act. When a person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto, the proposal said is to be accepted. Since in the layman's language, the proposal was made, right? Do you say yes or no? The proposal acceptance. But we shouldn't miss that any proposal made should be made with a view to do something and or not to do something. In either of the cases, we give our acceptance. Then what is promisor, promisee and promise? When a proposal is accepted, after the proposal is made, when it is accepted, it becomes a promise. The person who makes the proposal is the promisor and the person who accepts the proposal is called a promisee. So when an acceptance is given, then it is a promise. The person making the proposal is promisor and person accepting the proposal is promisee. But still we haven't reached the stage of a contract. Till this stage, anybody can place a proposal and anybody can accept it and anybody can later flout it and abscond. Toward this, we bind them to their promise by paying some consideration. Yeah, consideration generally means money. So with this, we move ahead to our what called consideration. So consideration is defined under section 2D of the Indian Contract Act. It states that when at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person has abstained from doing or does or abstains from doing or promises to do or abstain from doing something, such act, abstinence or promise is called a consideration. In a layman's language, anything paid or done to keep the promise binding, be it anything, still after paying the consideration, we haven't reached the stage of contract, but we are close to it. So what is next? Agreement. Promise and every set of promise forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. So after learning the meaning of agreement, I hope you all have understood what is agreement, and after understanding what is contract, you will be able to understand the sentences which I read at the beginning of the lecture. That is, all contracts are agreement and all agreements are not contract. Now before moving on to the definition of contract, let me give an example. So if I say, will you buy my laptop for 20,000 rupees? So you give an acceptance that you say yes. So with your acceptance, we constituted a promise. Now you may think anybody can make such proposals, acceptance can be made. But what if the person What if the purchaser takes my laptop and pays me half amount? What if he absconds with that amount? So in this case, the consideration is 20K to keep the promise binding. Okay. Now here the agreement has been created. Till stage it is not clear whether the agreement made is enforceable or not. Let us understand again with an example. You ordered something from Flipchart, say a mobile. You paid consideration, means mobile, paid for mobile, but you did not get the mobile. Instead, you got an apple of fruit in the box of a mobile. Can now you take Flipchart in court? At the same time, in a modified manner, the same example, I bought a mobile from Flipchart. I received the mobile after paying consideration to the Flipchart for the mobile. For myself, I brought it. Now I say to my younger brother, if you score good marks in your exam, I'll give this mobile to you. He get good mark, but now I do not want to give him the mobile. Can my brother now in this case approach the court for remedy, any remedy? No, simply because it did not create legal intentions. In the first example, purchasing a mobile, I can go to the court, but in the example of mobile to my brother, I cannot. So the question arises of enforceability. So a contract which is enforceable by law is called a contract. Simple. So which contracts are enforceable? If the conditions meet set out in section 10 of the Indian Contract Act says consideration, competent parties. If you are coming into a contract, you should be well aware that are you competent to enter into a contract. Competency, I mean proper offer and acceptance, creating legal intention should be there. Without legal intention, there is no contract. And without legal intention, if you go to the court will say, go get your case, get the facts of the case proper. Second is you should have a sound mind. The person should be above 18 or major. So again, a question for you all: can a minor millionaire, the minor is a very millionaire, he is very rich, can he come into a contract in any, if you want to add just any points, can he come into a contract? He still can come in the contract, but with the help of a guardian. Guardian can on behalf of the minor can do so. Third is free consent. Why free consent and not just consent? Okay, if you are told to give your consent at a gunpoint, you are sitting there and I'm pointing a gun towards you and then I say, give your consent. At that point you will say, okay, I give my consent. But is it a free consent? Are you giving are you giving it by your will? No, it is not a free consent. That's why it is said with free consent a contract can be made. Okay, next is it should be free from coercion, it should be free from undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, mistake of fact. Now what is lawful objection? Next point. It means when we are paying consideration, is paying of that consideration lawful? If we had paying consideration to keep the promise binding. So in any, for example, if I say, understand, student of degree college wants to get their examination papers leaked, they give consideration to another person rupees 20,000 to get it leaked. But the person does not leaks the paper and keeps away all the money. It is secondary that you may take revenge after by violence or whatever method you take. But can you now go to the court and ask remedy for this? No, because there was no lawful objection or lawful consideration. So be aware, if you are giving any money to a person, think, is it lawful? Can I go against him in the court if my work is not done? Okay. Now what are the forms of contract? Well, in our day-to-day life, we come across at least 3 of such contracts, if not 4, without even realizing. The reasons be whatever it may be. As I mentioned in the beginning, different forms of contract. So what is oral contract? So there are 4 forms of contract: oral contract, written contract, implied and express contracts. So what is oral contract? I'll explain you with a simple example. Oral agreements consist of words, gestures, symbols by which one party conveys a promise or set of promises to another, which on acceptance by the other party becomes a valid oral agreement. They may express or implied in nature. Valid oral agreements are legally enforced in the court of law. However, if it is not of great evidentiary value, as the agreement is understood through the word of mouth and obtained via second-hand knowledge. In case of a dispute or a suit, it is difficult task for the court to ascertain the true nature of facts and terms of the agreement without the invasion of biasness. A written contract. For example, a contract of sale of property, 2-year car lease, an auto property, and medical insurance contracts are written contracts. Basically, written contracts are those contracts which you write on a sheet of paper and get it properly enforced. Okay. Written contracts provide certainty to terms. They spell out in detail the various obligations of the parties and attempt to deal with future contingencies. Now, what is implied contract? An implied contract arises from the conduct of the party. The contract is not based on written or oral agreement between the parties. An example of implied contract is implied warranty arising upon purchase of a product. A product purchase is expected to perform certain functions. Next is expressed contract. If you offer to sell your bike to John for rupees 50,000 and John states that he agrees to buy the bike for that price, you have an expressed contract. Likewise, in the earlier example I said, if I want to initiate a contract, so I have to make a proposal. So that time I had made an expressed contract. It's a form of contract. Okay. I hope now you might understand what are contracts and forms of contracts. Now, what is counter offer? Example, Bhaiya, how much for this vegetable? The vendor gives a heart-wrenching reply. He says 100 rupees kg, Bhaiya. So, so Indian mom says, I'll take 2 kg, but give me for rupees 150. Here it is at the liberty of the vendor to accept the counter offer. If vendor accepts it, Indian moms win. I hope with this example you might have understood what is counter offer. What is invitation to offer? Best explained with an example. A sees an article marked as 50 rupees in B's shop. He tells B he will buy it and offers rupees 50. B says that he does not wish to sell that article. Now it will be seen that here there is no contract at all. If a customer enters the shops, tenders the price and demands the article, the shopkeeper is not bound to sell him. In such cases, the price tag is not an offer but an invitation to offer. The demand of the customer is in offer which the shopkeeper is free to accept or reject. Now, a discussion on invitation of offer is incomplete without mentioning the infamous precedent laid down in Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Balls Company. In this case, the defendants carried out an advertisement claiming their product, the Carbolic Smoke Ball, if used 3 times daily for 2 weeks, would prevent cold and influenza, along with an offer to pay a reward of 100 euros to anyone who might catch influenza even after using the product as prescribed. To show their sincerity in doing so, the company deposited a sum of rupees 1,000 euro in public bank. The plaintiff Carlyle bought the product and used it as prescribed and still caught influenza. The plaintiff filed a suit for recovery of 100 euros, which was appealed against by the company. It was held that a binding contract came into existence between the company and the plaintiff once the plaintiff purchased the product. With this, I would now further move to takeaways, which is important part of the lecture. How to learn contracts or best practices for law aspirants and law students. Now, if any first requirement is a law student or law aspirant should know at least this basic which I have mentioned in the lecture. First basic. If they know this, whenever while they are traveling, whenever right from as they wake up, right from when they wake up and right to going before bed, they enter into multiple contracts, while being aware that there are 4 forms of contract and without 4 forms of contract, and every time you are purchasing a ticket, be it anywhere, say it a railway station, but you have to be aware that are you competent enough. You have to ask yourself questions. Can you enforce that contract if violated, if flouted? Second is be aware. Wherever you go, be aware that you are entering into a contract. You are aware that you are competent enough. Third is while interning. This is best. While interning, your senior might give you some examples of leave and license agreement, some drafts. Now, first of all, you will read that draft or leave and license agreement. You will look whether the party is competent. If it is not, you will intimate that to your senior. This is how you will, you know, question yourself with the question. Every time you recall, you revise what have you learned in law of contracts, and every time as you do, you will your knowledge in contract will start strengthening. Now, how to save yourself from fraudsters or cheaters? Okay, first of all, you should understand how are you cheated. Now, in a hurry burry, or you will be told to sign up on a blank sheet of paper. What do I mean by this? Okay, so for example, if I propose that I want to do this contract, okay, but the opposite party is in a hurry burry, that he wants to go somewhere out, and he does not have time. So I may asking, okay, you sign it on this blank sheet of paper. In hurry burry he did. Now I have his consent because he signed it. Now I can include any clauses of my choice, but he doesn't know that. Here, mistake of facts was done, misrepresentation was done. Why? Because this other party was not known of the facts, proper facts that was incorporated in that draft. Second is blind faith towards country cousin. What do we mean by country cousins? Okay, this is especially famous among Gujaratis, businessmen, and Marwadis. No? I do not mean to target them, but it is like when two Gujaratis come together, they have a like mind. Okay, so if a person A is a Gujarati and he is a businessman, okay, and person B is also a businessman, so actually this scenario happened while I was interning. You know, one client came. So that person, the client was actually a habitual tobacco chewer. Okay, so he has to regularly visit to pan shop. So that pan shop wala person was also Gujarati. So you know, Gujarati Guratis, when they wipe, but my client does not know that the pan shop is a fraudster. So, and that pan shop wala has merely more than 5 to 6 shops. He's running a big business, and my client does not know that. Okay, so the one day that pan shop wala asks my client, I want some urgent money because I want to expand my business. He doesn't have. So my client agreed to it, because you know, during course of time, Gujarati course of times, they both wipe. Okay, so the pan wala shop said, I want to expand my business. I want some funding, urgent funding. Okay, so my client asked, okay, what kind of investment do you want to make? So he said, I want to invest into that fund. Okay, you give me your property, I'll give you money. He said, my client said, you give me your property, I'll give you money. They both came into an agreement, MOU, Member of Understanding. Now, the member of MOU was drafted. Now it was left for the parties to sign. What the shopwala did was, you know, he asked my client, you just read the terms and conditions of the client, you know, to show that sincerity, that everything is good, running good. Okay, he read all things. Then he later took back. He said, after signing, I'll give you. After signing, he didn't sign. My client kept in requesting that he give me the MOU, because I want to sign the MOU so that we can execute it. But then by that time, my client has already paid a sum of rupees X in lakhs to the shopwala. He has given him money, but they still haven't executed an MOU. Now the shopwala was a fraudster. Okay, so he tried to, you know, he told my client that on one pretext or another, I will give you on a later date. Till now he hasn't given him the MOU, nor the MOU is executed. This is how country cousins cheat. This is just a small example, small part of cheaters. What can I say? Second is emotion. Emotions means family relations. हो जाता है कभी कभी. Now, here example of one tenant. Okay, so the whole there was a residential building. Whole residential building was, you know, meant for tenants only. So there were 27 tenants. Okay, now the owner of the building, the builder wanted to go for redevelopment, because it was a very old building. So what happened, you know, the tenant which was refusing to vacant his room. The builder was literate. He knows good English, but my tenant does not know good English. He knows Hindi. He is literate. You know, so what the builder did, you know, he wrote a letter on behalf of that tenant in English, asked my tenant to sign. That means he obtained obtained a tenant's signature, and on that letter it was written that I hereby consent to give my vacant possession of my room. When that tenant came to senior's office for consultation, it revealed that he was cheated. So we just read the proceedings. Okay, now here, who is literate and who is not literate? Now you may note that the tenant who signed the letter, he did not knew English, but he knew Hindi. Here what happened is, misrepresentation, mistake. It was a duty of the owner to explain the tenant that what he has written. It was a duty, and it was, and it duty of the builder to tell the tenant that what are the contents of this letter and take signatures legally. Okay, but he didn't do that. Okay, now I believe here illiterate is not the tenant, because illiterate, I believe, in my personal opinion, is a person who, in spite of knowing basics of basic laws, not even laws, basic of basic manners. For example, if I say if it is wrong to spit in public, and still he does that. Here the person who is spitting is illiterate. There are two humans. First human, he knows English. The second human, he knows Hindi. So first human does not know Hindi, but second human does not know English. Here both are literate. Illiteracy comes when both of either of them knowing the basic of basic laws still does wrong, then in that case he is illiterate. But now finally I would like to once again thank the entire team of Hammurabi for inviting me to listening to my lecture. Thank you one and all.
So Arpit, thank you very much. This was like a revision of our Contract Act, which we have learned now long back when we were in school and college days of law colleges. So it was like hearing your lecture was like, once again getting that typical thing, contract is an agreement enforceable by law, so which we have learned long back. So thanks once again for doing a revision for us. And this is a small token from Hammurabi to you.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
sir.